right, yeah. So Jim here with Always Bayern Chelsea, here with Roohdar X, who has gracefully come on to the podcast with me this evening for me, morning for him over in India. How you doing, man? It's great to see you.
I'm glad to be here. Thanks for having me. It was wonderful to come across your channel. It was a very interesting concept, I must say, of two buddies coming together. So I was very interested, and I reached out to you guys. So thanks for reaching back. I'm glad to be here. Actually, I'm very glad to be here.
Yeah, no, glad to have you on. And I feel like so far with our podcast, Danny and I, we've really talked to a bunch of different people from across the globe at this point. Danny's had a couple podcasts about Bayern with a fella from Ukraine. So now it's great to
Mhm.
talk to you. I feel like it's just a great way to connect people. The sport of football just really brings people together.
It really does. It really does. I see the potential in doing that. So it's great. Like more people are doing this, so it's great. It's awesome. It really is. I feel this is, I guess, what ultimately any sport, be it football or any other major sport, is, I guess, supposed to do. Bring people together in one sense of the word, right? So yeah, I'm all in for that. I'm all in for that.
Totally. So if you want to just maybe introduce yourself and your channel, and where you're located, and background on whether it's your YouTube channel or how you kind of started, at least for our audience, so they can get to know you.
So yeah, my channel's name is Roohdar X, and I'm a Kashmiri who's been born and raised in Delhi. All my education and stuff has been, I've grown up here. So I have been watching football for well over almost 20 years now. I'm in my 30s, so let me just give the audience an idea of how old I am. So they know like 20 years is, I'm not like 50 years old, I'm 30s. So yeah, but I've been watching as a kid. And as growing up, especially in a place like Delhi, India, was that we were exposed to football from the age of the David Beckhams, right? When Beckham was big, and he was a huge sensation within the brown communities. We had like films like Bend It Like Beckham. We directed by like English desis set up in the UK, who were making these films. And Beckham was on this craze. Manchester United was a huge sub symbol. So was Real Madrid. So was Thierry Henry and Arsenal. So I'm come from that era, and that's how I started watching football. But there was something about Zola curling a free kick, which attracted me really a lot as a kid when I watched him do that. And I used to keep watching in and off, but in and around 2005 and 6, I remember this guy named Jose Mourinho come in and just shake up the world of club football completely. And I was like, who is this guy? And back in those early day of console gamings, you used to buy a lot of FIFAs, and you would get these in FIFA '06 and '07. There used to be these season highlights and back-to-back season highlights across two FIFAs, which was a special edition which they discontinued after that. They never had season highlights after that. Was of two titles of back-to-back under Mourinho of Chelsea in the Premier League. And I was like, whoa, this team is like looks crazy, and this manager looks crazy. And I started properly, like literally into football like around 2006, and I've never looked back. I never looked back ever since. Been a diehard Chelsea supporter there since then. But obviously, I used to play football also in school. And back then, obviously, when I started watching, it was huge. I grew up in a time when Manchester United was big. Was I need to say that, right? Because Manchester United is in a pile of shitstorm. I mean, they're doing something. They're in a different direction. We'll get to that, I guess. So that's how I started watching, and I've been watching football ever since then. And I have been like through, and I've been through ups and downs. So I've seen everything. I've seen the highs. I've seen the lows. The lowest of the low, according to me, was what we went through in the past 2 years, but things seem to be turning a corner, or are they? Who knows? So I'm excited about that. I feel there's a positivity amongst us fans suddenly, which I hadn't seen in a long time. And I personally also relate to football through my own identity of being brown, of the culture we have built here in the community, of how we have related to football. I mean, we used to look up to footballers and imitate their skills in our school playgrounds, and that's how we also used to like them and used to connect with the football culture there. And I don't know how it was for you. I would love to know your experience, because when we got tried to assimilate ourselves into football community, Facebook was very new back then. So shout out to the Chelsea Facebook fan group, which is still very active, and that social media page was actually on Facebook. We had a couple of famous YouTubers, Chelsea YouTubers currently. One of them is an Indian Chelsea YouTuber named Karan Singh Magic. Big up to him. He's a good friend of mine, and he's done a lot of stuff. He's big now. He's like collabed with Chelsea YouTube channels themselves, and he's like met Hasselbank and whatnot. He's a big guy. So he's a big popular name in the community. He's my good friend. He was on that page. I don't know if you heard of Feroz. Feroz is big in the Twitter community, and he's also big in the YouTube community now, who used to make a lot of Chelsea videos and edits. He was on that page. So that's also how I started into fandom, like meeting these people globally through Facebook. And now obviously we have other platforms. Like I met you like through like the YouTube, which is great. And so that's me. I want to know. I know a little bit about your journey, but I would want to hear a little bit from your own self. Like, how is it you? How do you feel? How do you come into football fandom in general?
Yeah, that's a great journey you've had and completely different from mine, to be
Yeah,
honest.
yeah,
You've been a fan for at least 20 years now, it sounds like. And
yeah.
it's funny you mentioned FIFA because one of my really close friends and a ton of people I know in America got into watching whether you call it football or soccer here in America because of FIFA. And so
Hmm.
that's just funny because I hear that so often.
Hmm.
And it seems like that's a huge way, at least it was marketed in America,
Hmm.
which
Hmm.
is pretty
Yeah.
typical. But yeah, I don't know how much you've kind of seen of our page, but Danny and I are very new football fans.
Yeah.
Um, this is now my fourth season as a Chelsea fan,
Uh-huh. Oh,
and it's been
wow.
incredible. I say that, and it's funny because for you, the last 3 years have been your lowest of lows, and and
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that's why I kind of like how I came into becoming a Chelsea fan at this low point because now I've been able to slowly and steadily increase into becoming world champions, and it's absolutely phenomenal. But
Yeah.
so I literally one of my really good friends is a huge Liverpool fan. Shout out to
Hmm.
him, winning the Premier League this year. But
Hmm.
he just kind of told me, "Hey, I'm a big, soccer football fan. I go to the pub early in the morning, watch these games. Why don't you consider becoming a fan?" And I've been a fan of every sport here in Wisconsin, forever:
Hmm.
baseball, basketball, football, everything. The
Hmm.
typical American sports, and
Hmm.
I have kind of occasionally watched, our U.S. men's team and women's team, mostly women's because they're actually good. The men's
Oh man,
haven't been
they're amazing. Big
right,
up to them.
exactly. So, I've kind of loosely followed stuff over the
Mhm.
years. And then I said, all right, I'll pick a Premier League team, kind of viewed it as the biggest league, most accessible with Peacock and how the TV rights are here in America.
Yeah.
And, something just kind of drew me to Chelsea. I'll be honest, I did want to pick one of the bigger teams as they were more accessible, and a likelihood of being decent. But there was something about Chelsea because I knew they had just gotten new owners. So I started, that first summer when Bailey and Clear Lake took over. And
Mhm.
so I kind of was drawn because I knew they had potential to be bad in that first year. So to
Mhm.
me, it felt like I wouldn't be just jumping on a bandwagon of a super good team. If I would have
Yeah.
picked City when they were, winning six in a row or something, basically,
Yeah.
I'd
Yeah.
feel cheap. So
Yeah.
yeah, something about Chelsea, whether it was, the colors too. I love the royal blue,
Oh yeah.
and
Best color.
something drew me to it, and haven't looked back since in those 4 years. And now, obviously, Danny and I have this podcast where we talk about both our teams. So
Mhm.
It's been a beautiful journey. It really has.
Uh, how is I mean, we also want to discuss this. I want to come to a little bit of the immediacy of the whole thing. I mean, this season which passed by, what has let's go, like, I mean it seems like a blur because technically the season just ended, Jim. Like, it's been so weird this season, right? Like, very unusual kind of elongated season. But it's been a good ending to our for us, really. We ended really on a high. But what did you feel about this season? About what happened, like, in the how would you rate Chelsea's 24-25 season?
I mean, you have to rate it at least a 9 out of 10, if not 10 out of 10. Certainly an A on the grading scale. Coming in, I was expecting a pretty strong season. I was expecting
Mhm.
more stability after the last few years where you just have a ton of turnover with managerial changes and a lot of
Yeah.
guys coming in and out. And, so I was expecting a good season. I was expecting a Conference League trophy. I even actually had predicted maybe they'd get like an FA Cup or Carabao Cup or something. And obviously that didn't happen. But I certainly did not think they would win the Club World Cup. I did actually predict top four, so I will say that that was a great prediction by me. But I mean, you have to say it was an incredible season,
It
even
was.
with the highs and lows, even with that stretch where they struggled, February, March, those time periods. But
Yeah.
ton of fun, and man, the Club World Cup, the way they rode the momentum from the end of the year into that
Yeah. Yeah.
that was incredible to watch those games. I mean, you can't say anything else.
I,
They're world
true.
champions at this point,
I mean, I think you'll hear this phrase now, Jim. I think from a lot of our fan base in general, especially the older ones. We often say it as like a kind of a gimmicky kind of catchphrase, but it's actually kind of true. It's a Chelsea thing
right?
to do this. I went into this season, the previous season. See, I've been very critical of the ownership. I have been very a vocal opponent of how they run things, especially going into the beginning of this season. Uh, I have nothing against, I've never been too critical of Maresca. I mean, obviously, in a bad patch, I was very disappointed in the kind of decisions we were taking, the kind of way we were setting up, especially when we literally tanked from like a comfortable position within the top three to barely like staying in top four in that around February to March area. So I was really worried. I was like, I thought we were going to blow it up. And I was afraid the worst of the worst will happen. And that's when we had these protests also, right, against the ownership and whatnot. That was the peak. I think that was a big down low for me for the season. We were like, okay,
Yeah.
this is the lowest we have reached. And I don't know, and I honestly was not so positive looking back in April. I remember I was so scared that okay, I was so scared that maybe just okay. I was like worst case scenario, just win Conference League, get into Europa League, get some European football back. It's better than the Conference League. At least get these players minutes on like a higher level of football. But the way we ended was overwhelmingly positive. And I would say that kind of worked in our favor, the Club World Cup, because we ended the season on such a nice high. We went in such momentum, and we just took that into the Club World Cup. And like you, I had no expectations from the Club World Cup. Hell, I'll be honest, I'll be shameless about it. I didn't even care about this competition much. I was very vocal on my podcast. I was like, on my live streams, I was like, dude, I don't care. I mean, screw this. Like for me, main problem with the competition was like the player welfare part of it. Like I
Yep.
was thinking, these players are playing way too much football, and I just don't like Infantino too much and how FIFA is run in general. So I was very pissed off with how he was conducting himself and how he was trying to brag about this competition being like so great and whatnot. Obviously things changed as we reached like the semis and the finals. I'm like, you know what, this competition is not that bad. So I was like, I completely flipped. I'll be honest, I'll be shameless about it. Although I realize how much it matters to non-European football fans because I saw the Brazilian people supporting their clubs all the way through it and being very passionate. in the football stadiums. You guys were there, I think, in one of the matches, if I'm correct, right?
We
You
were,
guys
yeah, we
probably,
went to a Bayern match. Yep.
yeah. I mean, you guys saw like the atmospheres of the South American fans. So I guess so. I think this. So that is, I think that one good thing that came out of this was like it's nice. It was nice to see a like a non-Eurocentric kind of view of football and see like okay, people want to play this competition. Let's be honest, and it has potential. But yeah, I guess I realized if it is a little conducted a little more like smoothly, not like this like slammed into like such a busy season, maybe it'll become better over time. But yeah, I felt we ended on a high, and I think it was a great 8 and season. I would say definitely an 8 and 8.5 season for me out of 10. I couldn't have expected anything much. This was my expectations. Top four, Conference League was my minimum. Club World Cup was exceeded expectations. So I think I'll give it like an 8.5 for sure. For me. For me, we definitely did better than what anyone was expecting. We can say that safely.
Yeah, I totally agree. And, to be honest, it's funny because in my beginning of the season predictions, Danny and I didn't even talk about the Club World Cup because I kind of forgot that it was viewed as part of the 24-25 season, which is
Same.
just funny looking back.
Yeah.
And yeah, not that we have to get into it, but a lot of what you said about the Club World Cup, I agree with in terms of, a lot of my concerns, how things went. I'm also not a huge fan of Infantino, FIFA, and kind of a lot of the corruption and things that they
Yeah.
do.
Yeah.
Um, so I think there was a lot of highs and lows for that. But one thing I do want to touch on that you said is the Chelsea ownership. And I certainly have seen on Twitter and a lot of social media with longtime Chelsea fans like yourself,
Mm.
a lot of people are against the ways that they've kind of gone about their business, rightfully so in a lot of ways.
Mm. Mm.
But I think my perspective is interesting just because I'm a
Mm.
newer fan and
Mm.
also an American, and
Yeah.
they're clearly American owners doing things frankly in American ways. The way they're running the team
Yeah.
is ways that a lot of American sports are run, buying,
Really.
getting young talent. That's a
Mm.
hugely American thing, putting a lot of
Yeah.
money into young talent.
Yeah.
And so I think I just have that interesting perspective because when I started as a fan of Chelsea and they start
Mm.
on this low part of the league, it's been
Mm.
great for me to ride that wave up to the top now because I wasn't somebody that was coming in expecting trophy, 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 trophy. A lot of
Yeah.
longtime Chelsea fans, the success under Roman, that's all you're used to. So for me,
Yeah.
I get that and I understand that a lot of
Mm.
Chelsea fans have been really struggling,
Mm.
but that's kind of been awesome for me to be able to go through that and come out the other side a champion, really.
Yeah. I think I want to get your before I we discuss like obviously there's so many transfers things, but I think we got to discuss Xavi Simmons. I think we'll definitely want to touch on all these transfer rumors, but I want to get your views. How have you viewed like so you've obviously given the fact that you joined, you're an American, you joined at such a different stage of how Chelsea were. How have you viewed this ownership in general?
I would say I largely view it as a success thus far.
Hmm.
And I realize, they were 12th. I think that was the first year, right? 12th and
Yeah,
then
sixth.
6th and 4th, right? So that was the 3 years that I've been a fan. So
Yeah,
obviously, that first year's not great. And the transfers they had, piss poor. They tried getting some older guys, Aubameyang, Sterling, guys that just didn't work out. But then
yeah,
they also started getting a lot of these young guys. And so I view that piece of it where you're buying a ton of young talent, whether it's from South America, wherever. I view
yeah.
that as a hugely positive thing. And I
Hmm.
think a lot of teams are going to regret not doing it as much as Chelsea has. You can throw
Hmm.
darts all across the board at these young guys. Some of them are going to hit. And we've seen already that some of these guys are hitting.
Yeah.
So I think that's a huge plus with
Hmm.
this ownership. And I think what you also have to think about, and I didn't necessarily know what all happened when, Roman got sanctioned and all that and had to sell the team. But from what I
Yeah,
do understand, it was a pretty quick process and probably not ideal for Chelsea Football Club and for how it kind of went down. So
yeah,
I view that as you got to give Clear Lake and Todd some credit for how they were able to basically turn things around in these 3 years, because that
Mhm.
wasn't easy. And
Yeah.
so I think you got to give them some grace for that. And so that's why I largely view it as a success. Um, Certainly there's been some struggles, but I think what we've seen now is that things can only get better.
I think what I think that this is a nice segue to connect to our recent transfer business also of how you win the ownership. Because as I told you, like I was very I'm still very cautious of them. I was way more critical until very recently, but I always had faith in Maresca because I actually rate Maresca or not. I would love to know your views on Maresca also. I mean, I'd actually rate Maresca. I mean, I never been sold on who the whole I am like a disciple of Pep kind of narrative. I mean, Arteta also has that narrative. I mean, what has he done in 6 years? I mean, no offense to Arsenal fans. I'm sorry, Arsenal fans. Shots fired at you again. I keep firing shots at Arsenal fans. I'm sorry. I'm
Good.
like, I mean, I do. Like, I just take a make out of them. I mean, come on, like 6 years, one trophy. I mean, Maresca has come in one season, has won two trophies already. I mean, uh, come on, like, where's your project going? Where's your process? But
Phase
apart from the
seven. Yeah.
apart from the Arsenal banter, to be very serious, I think you have to be fair. You're right, Jim. I think now, if you look at what they're doing now, earlier it was definitely it seemed very concerning to Chelsea fans how things were being conducted. I think it was a mix of having very high expectations under Roman Abramovich. In my podcast, I have often like in my early videos where I've talked about because I talk a lot about politics and football also. I'm a student of peace and conflict. I've done a PhD in peace and conflict. So I talk a lot about politics and political science and international relations within football, and I love reading about it and talking about it. So when I looked at what happened to us, I definitely saw it like it was a bad quagmire of a situation when the ownership transferred. Obviously, the problem is, and you probably know this, Americans don't rub off easily on people. They come off as sometimes as abrasive, very, like imposing. And the way they earlier conducted themselves, I think they were not used to knowing the expectations of fans in European football, and didn't realize the huge following people have and how like organized they are, especially if they're displeased. And I think they definitely made some mistakes in that regard. But credits to them for thankfully sticking to Maresca, and actually maybe I see as a gem of a manager. Hopefully, touch wood. If we and he did, and he's done a great job and he's done a great job. And credit where credit is due. You're right, Jim. We have had a very successful season. Now let's see how we build on this because I like our transfer business so far. Decent. I mean, I'm still very unhappy about Roberto Sanchez still having a starting place at a club. I am not happy about that at all. But apart from
Fair.
that, yeah, I'm not. Fair play to his great performance in Club World Cup. Thank you, Sanchez. I mean, but man, I cannot take more of that keeper. But getting back to our transfer business, I like it's you see there is an idea now. Now we know how these guys conduct things. How, you know what the now you suddenly see it because earlier this whole youth kind of policy was like, what are we stockpiling youth players for? And felt really, really nauseating after a point. But now you realize that, okay, some of them going to miss, but some of them are just going to be flipped, right?
Yep.
And you realize that eventually. And now, right now, for example, I mean, let's talk about the two names we're linked to. We have Xavi Simmons and we have Garnacho. We just got Hito in. Great buy, in my opinion. Hito's an absolute potential beast of a buy. An experienced 19-year-old, an actual experienced 19-year-old center back, left back, almost. reference to Bayern Munich, almost like a David Alaba kind of region, maybe. Who knows, who can play that center back and left back position. And I would like to talk about Bayern Munich also eventually a bit. But coming back to our transfer business, I see it that we finally have like a back, like a kind of a squad of, a backbone being developed. You see that in your Caicedos, your Cucureas, you have Palmer leading up from the front. You have the Enzo's also emerging as a leader, and now they want to like add like little more experience to the spine, which is now face these two tough 2 3 years together. And I like the fact that they formed a bond. I always knew it. We needed to bond over like winning trophies. Winning trophies builds a team. And I'm glad we have done that because that builds the hunger and desire and cohesion. Nothing like winning trophies builds a successful squad like anything else. And then like Xavi Simmons excites me. Xavi Simmons is a player of potential, great like this kind of number eight sort of position. He's almost like reverse Palmer, like Palmer cutting in from the right into like the central zones. Xavi Simmons like on the left flank, but cutting into the right half, like left half spaces and central zones. That'd be scary if he gets Simmons through. I mean, Simmons is stalling apparently right now. We'll get finding it hard, but I think that's great. That's great. Garnacho, on the other hand, is a very different buy because we know, and I've said this on other channels also. He seems more like a stock buy, like Felix. Like Felix was a stock buy. They knew like, okay, maybe he works, maybe he doesn't, but you know what? If it doesn't work, we'll just flip him, and we have. Look at that.
So, yeah. So I I think in regards to buys like that, what I'll say is these owners just do things differently than I think what a lot of fans are used to in the Premier
Yeah,
League and just in Europe in general. I
yeah,
think they look at a lot of market opportunities. I think Garnacho is a potential market opportunity, a guy that you can maybe buy for low because United's getting rid of him. He's
mm,
still young, ton of Premier League experience. It's an area that they potentially need, high shot volume, takes defenders on, even though he's not super successful, still has potential. And
yeah,
if you buy low, you can either flip him, if he stinks or he turns out to be great. Either way, that's the kind of moves that I think they look at. A guy like Felix was kind of a market opportunity too, because you're selling Gallagher, getting Felix, the whole thing with the agents,
mm,
PSR. That's just
mm,
the kind of moves they've been making. And it's kind of worked. They've been able to manage their way through PSR. They had the one kind of fine with UEFA now that they're in the Champions League. But I just think they do business differently. And whether that's the American way of doing things or just them being good businessmen, you can kind of look at it either way. I'll
mm.
also add, I love the way they've been using their new sister club, Strasbourg in
Oh
League
yeah,
One. I think it's going to be absolutely massive, and we're already seeing that. Guys like Paez, Penders going on loan there. Obviously Santos last year. I don't know how heavy you
yeah,
follow it, but I
yeah,
follow it pretty closely, and the way they're using that right now, even selling players there, Samuel Smith. I just think those kind of things working in tandem when you buy these young players and you're constantly bringing guys in, it's only going to make you grow as a team together. Young players growing together, winning trophies is going to be massive. And then you can add some guys on the fringe that have experience, as you kind of
yeah.
mentioned.
Yeah, yeah. I believe. I mean, I don't know if you follow other Chelsea YouTubers. Like, for example, I completely get like Matisse, like or Ma, as he called. For example, he just released a video. I know Matisse was displeased with the Garnacho transfer. I mean, I'm also not a fan of Garnacho. I'll be honest. I don't rate him much. He has terrible finishing. I've seen him play enough for United to say that, and very confident that that's I don't know if you can improve on that because if you're already like 23, 24, and if you're not got decent finishing, I don't know how much you can improve on your finishing unless you like just transform yourself. So but I knew they were gonna go for him eventually. It's just a matter of time. I knew it. I knew it, it's a market opportunity for them for this ownership. So for me, I was like, okay, I have to get like mentally adjusted to these kind of transfers. I never wanted, like, for example, Felix. Also, I was very unhappy. I was like, why are we getting Felix? He is like, he's just like, he's aesthetically kind of pleasing footballer with zero end product. So, it's
Yeah.
one of those. So I was like, why? Like, this guy's not going to work out. He didn't work out in the loan spell. Why would he work out now? And I was correct. But they flipped him. So for me with Garnacho, it's like, you know what? Maybe he gets some game time, like how Sancho did. And maybe, I don't know, we'd make some, if we get like a cheap deal, I'm like okay with it. Maybe it's, say, somewhere like a region of 30, 35 mil pounds is like, I think, an okay deal to make. So maybe you can just even flip him for like a 40, 45 later in the future, which is a possibility, especially if you sign him on a long contract. So I don't really see him as a like a needle mover, but I do see a Xavi Simmons as a needle mover for sure.
And I'll add too on Garnacho.
Yeah,
In sports, change of scenery can be such a massive thing for players. Man United is such a dumpster fire right now. I
yeah,
think a guy like Rashford going to Barcelona is going to be huge for him. Garnacho coming to Chelsea could be huge. You never know. And I'm not a massive fan of him either. But at this
mm,
point, I've pretty much accepted that he's probably going to come.
yeah,
So I'm
yeah,
kind of just turning the tide in terms of the way
mm,
I'm looking at it, and I'm trying to be
yeah,
positive and kind of go from there. But I
yeah,
do agree. I do think Xavi Simmons is going to be absolutely electric if Maresca can find the way to get him in good positions with
yeah,
Palmer, without Palmer, whether Gittins is playing on the left and Simmons is in the center, or Pedro
yeah,
or Delop, Jackson, whoever's in with him. I think he's going to
yeah,
have to figure that out. But all those
yeah.
guys together could be so fun to watch.
I think so. I think so. I've also probably, I think Club World Cup gives a little glimpse into what Maresca is also trying to do with his team. He's actually doing something very similar to what PSG is doing, right? Having these like very mobile, fluid kind of like a front three, front four, front attacking five in the attacking phase of the game, right? Where where suddenly, I mean, for example, we used to criticize Maresca like, you don't use fullbacks like normal fullbacks. They're not bombing down the wings. What the hell are they inverting in the midfield for? But look at the Club World Cup final. Reece James in the midfield, amazing, controlled that game, and Gusto was bombing down the flank.
Yep.
PSG did not see that coming. So I'm like, okay, like this is why I rated Maresca. I was like, okay, this guy's got the deal. So I feel positive going into the next season. I hope we got enough rest. We got Crystal Palace. We got a preseason also coming up. I don't know how that go, but I'm excited after ages. I'll be honest. I'm excited after ages, like looking forward to the new season starting. I want to know a quick shout out before I know how we don't know, I don't know how much time we got left. I want to know your thoughts. What do you think our chances are in the league next season? How do you rate our chances?
I rate him pretty highly. I mean, right now, I'm just putting together my predictions on all 20 spots in the Premier League, which I'll drop soon. So, little teaser there. But I think right now I have Chelsea in that three spot.
Mm,
I think Liverpool are just such strong favorites with what they've added, especially if they end up getting Isak. We'll see. Sounds like maybe they won't now, but I think City are going to be really strong too. I think they'll finish second, and I think Chelsea can be third. I see Arsenal as a team that might fall off a little bit. I
yeah.
actually think Tottenham's going to have a pretty good year, unfortunately, but I just think Chelsea can really ride the momentum and only get better with the young guys. So I think it's going to be a really competitive season, but I
Yeah.
see them playing really well, and they will have to manage Champions League as well. But I think they'll have a strong year. Yeah.
Maresca's newly assembled squad is looking very fluid, and it's clear like we he wants to attack and play in very different sort of styles. He doesn't want to. It shows his flexibility. It's something what I think we fans were complaining about right in the middle of the season. Like Maresca just like slow based possession. He doesn't want to change his style of football, and a lot of fans were fuming. And this is the part of like Chelsea YouTube fan channels or football fan channels, which the part I don't like. There, some of them are very trigger happy. Like when things go south, especially with Chelsea fans, we're like sack the manager. It's like almost like burn the witch kind of. Almost like this kind of collective spirit takes over the fandom, and I don't like that personally. I've always hated that. I hated it always. I've always
Because
hated
that's what
it.
they've done, right? Correct me if I'm
Yeah.
wrong. I haven't been a fan forever, but
Mm.
they've continuously sacked guys pretty quick, right? In the old era.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it was wild. It was wild during Roman. It was wild. It was managers, like the most brutal sacking I still remember till date, and I felt, till date I feel bad about. Obviously, Mourinho being sacked the second time around was one of the worst for people. I think a lot of people felt so disillusioned after that when Mourinho came second time around and he was sacked midway. I think, but after that, if that's your number one for old school Chelsea fans, I think the number two has to be Carlo Ancelotti, sacked in the dugout, literally walking from the dugout in the tunnel after losing to Everton in the last Premier League game of the season in 2010-2011 season. And Ancelotti, like Don Ancelotti, like Don Carlo, man, this guy's a legend, okay, right? I mean, he doesn't need any introduction. Don Carlo, who had just won us the Premier League in an impressive manner the very previous season, did not do so well in the second season, was coming second. He's walking literally from the dugout to the tunnel, and he gets told by Roman, like, you're not wanted anymore, you're done. I mean, that was brutal. And I was so disappointed. I never wanted Ancelotti to leave. And that was and so I think even with Conte, the way things ended with Conte after his second season, where he did not finish in the Champions League position, we finished the fifth, and he had created also like this sort of he'd gone on battlefield with everyone from Diego Costa to everyone was like his enemy now at the club, and then he was unceremoniously just like sacked. Like Conte wanted to prepare for the new season, but he was like told like don't come, just stay. It's just like you're good. So I did not like the hiring firing culture. This is one part of Roman Abramovich era which I think a lot of Chelsea fans don't want to honestly confront. I feel a lot of them live in this sort of nostalgia, like
Yeah.
it's almost like how I mean you can relate to this. I mean when I say this because I know enough about I guess about American culture because enough of watching TV shows and films from there is that there is a huge dose of American nostalgia about their own past sometimes, like uh I guess that's why the appeal of MAGA, I guess, because it's like, oh, there's some nostalgia, there's some great era, golden era we need to go back to. But
Right.
golden eras are not always golden, right? For everything, like there are problems. There were problems. This is an honest assessment. Things were not always rosy. Things were bad. Things used to go down south in a lot of ways. Also, yeah, we were successful, but it felt so cold at times. For for a change, that's why I really wanted and I needed, like, I felt that Maresca needed to be backed. Because I honestly believe, especially after the start we had to the season, that okay, this guy has potential and we need to see this through. That faith kind of wavered in the middle of the season, and rightfully so. You should call out managers when they're not performing. I think that's fine. That's no problem with that. But is this almost like this public lynching culture in social media circles, especially, which goes on whenever a team performs badly? It's like the manager has to go. The manager has to go. The manager is responsible ultimately. Yeah, the manager is responsible, but you got to look at what Maresca was handed. It was essentially still a team kind of half confident, half assembled, right? It was nowhere. Our legacy was gone. There were no like old school legends. The club's reputation, leadership had to be built from scratch. Like Reece James was the only Champions League winning squad member, right? From this squad. He was the only person. Ben Chilwell's not in the plans anymore. He's more or less out of the squad. I don't know how he'll be sold also. That's another question, I guess, for the another day. But Reece James is the only person linking Chelsea's past to the Chelsea's present, if you think about it, right? And that's not enough of a bridgeway, a gap into like building like say a winning culture kind of thing. So I felt it was really tough task Maresca was handed, and I think he did a commendable job. And I still stay till date that all the success we've had, I think a huge, and I would give still a huge and majority of credit to Enzo Maresca, because without him, without his genius head of his bald head of his, I don't think we would have got him so far. I don't
No,
think so.
I totally agree, and I think the key with Maresca is that he's the first type of manager that they hired in the new era that can be there more long term.
Hmm.
And, maybe it's because he's more of a pep guy, similar to Arteta. They've been there for a while now. But I think knowing what Tuchel is, he was never going to be a guy that stays for a long time.
Yeah.
Pochettino, same thing. He bounces around a ton.
Hmm.
Graham Potter, who knows what that was? I don't really want to comment on that. But Maresca, I think, is a guy that because he's more lower on the totem pole starting out, hasn't
Yeah.
managed a ton, briefly with Parma and then Leicester City for that 1 year in the championship. But
Yeah.
I think that's huge because he's a guy that can grow with these young players too.
True.
Managing young Man City squads, development squads, as he did, working with young guys, I think that's
Hmm.
really key as well.
Yeah.
And I think Maresca, I view him as somebody who can stay for at least 5 years, which could be building a dynasty with these guys, and that's
Yeah.
awesome as a fan. I think.
Yeah. I think I see uh definitely huge potential to create something very exciting. I think a lot of fair play to a lot of rival fans. They're sort of acknowledging this aspect of what Chelsea can potentially do, which I also did not acknowledge. We must be honest about it to your viewers, to my own viewers. They know this. Like I was not so confident about where this club was heading, but I can see these traces of, okay, maybe I can see it now. Maybe credit where credit is due. So still, I would still say, is the jury out? Maybe the jury is still out because I would like us to really eventually start competing for the Premier League title, which we haven't done in like 8 years. Like
And
we
that's fair.
haven't. Yeah.
That's a fair assessment.
Yeah.
For you to say that, both things can be true, which I think is the key. And that's what I think some people do miss. For a lot of
Mhm.
people, it's got to be black and white. But I think
Yeah.
what you're saying there is acknowledging that you didn't necessarily have the most faith up front, but now
Mm.
you're buying more in. And that's
Mm.
what's important as a fan to grow with the team and
Yeah.
start getting that trust back from the club.
Yeah.
And so I commend you for recognizing that and saying that.
I think football is such a Jim. I think you've already seen. Football is a very like any other sport, and I think probably perhaps arguably more sport than any other. You find like these volatile change in moods and emotions as the season goes on, and as the season changes. Things develop in football so fast, so quick that we can't see things coming. Nobody saw this coming. Hell, Chelsea fans didn't see it coming. We ourselves were doubting. I think I remember before the Club World Cup final, for example, I was like just happy to be there. I was like, okay, you know what? We reached the final. Let's be honest, they're a better team. They're the best team in the world. They still are, I believe, right now. PSG the best team in the world. But so I was like, you know what? If we just like compete in this final, I'll be happy because this is exceeding expectations. No one expected us, including us, to reach this so far. But but when he did that, when he did the impossible, and I was like, okay, okay, this is somehow getting back some of that Chelsea spirit, like of winning against all odds, sort of attitude, us against the world, sort of attitude, which is really, I feel, has always been the DNA of following Chelsea Football Club in its successful era. Is that one thing which is common, I guess, between Roman and the Clear Lake ownership and the Blue Co ownership is that I think we have successfully somehow connected to the past, which is the winning against all odds. And I think that also kind of favors us going into this season because going into this season, there's so many different expectations. I mean, there's one set of fans who say, okay, it's part of the process. The P word gets thrown around again. Okay, let's see how the process takes us, what the project takes us. I don't know. It's good. It's fine. The minimum expectation is the Champions League spots. And then on the other hand, we have some Chelsea fans like who are saying on this in the social media space are like, no, we must compete. We have to go for the title now or never. Like we must. I know Liverpool is better, but we must at least challenge for the title. I would like to know how you feel about that, realistically, and because my opinion, honestly, is that I don't expect us, honestly, to compete for the title. I know I expect us to be better than last season. I definitely agree what your initial assessment was, which was like a top three finish is good. I honestly agree with that. I think like a top three finish is realistic, given how we're going into this season and given our sort of transfer business we have done. I think that can be a great potential. But to expect a Premier League title challenge is too soon, I believe. I feel we still are missing few key pieces, especially the goalie. I was very disappointed when we didn't do Mannion. Manio was my
Yep.
I think that would be a great upgrade. Hope we still go for him in probably January, maybe when he's up for end of his contract. I hope that can happen. But I feel that is the key link we still missing. My center back was a concern, but I think Levi Colwill is finally showing up to his potential. I really loving that. He's also turning out to be a leader. His statements, the way he talks to the press, is encouraging. So there is a group to coming together. But I also worry because the thing is, we've always been like for the past 7 8 years always a good cup team. We do good in cups, right? Be it the Champions League, be it the domestic cups like the FA Cups. Obviously it was not nice losing three FA Cup finals in a row. That sucked completely. It's that I was so tired of the FA Cup. After that I was like, I don't want to reach out to the final and lose. So I was done with that. But the fact that we did well was a good sign. But the league is like the final frontier kind of thing for us, isn't it?
Yeah, no, I agree with a lot of what you said there. And I think it's important that you did note the DNA carrying over from Roman to Clear Lake now with kind of that us against the world mentality, because you don't want to lose a lot of that DNA that you had that
Yeah,
Chelsea has been known for. And that's really tough to maintain that when you have a new ownership
yeah,
group and everything that's changed. So to still have that, I think
mm,
is huge and will be huge going forward.
yeah,
But for this year, yeah, I agree. I said I think top three is very possible. I do think it's just going to really be tough for a few reasons to challenge for the title. And who knows, halfway through the year, they could be close and maybe make a push. But being in the Club World Cup, first and foremost, could be a disadvantage in terms
yeah,
of guys not being at 100%. Who knows?
sure,
They could start off slow without
true,
really a true preseason here, still bringing new guys into the squad.
yeah,
How are
yeah,
they going to fit together
mm,
without a lot of time? Who really knows? They haven't even gotten back. I think this week they're finally getting back, which is
yeah,
crazy.
crazy,
So
yeah, you are,
that could be huge. And then
yeah,
they're just still really young,
yeah,
which is a positive for some reasons, but it's going to be tough to still make that next leap forward. And then yeah, I think you cannot win a Premier League title unless you have a world class goalkeeper, and
yeah,
I do not think Robert Sanchez is that. Do I
yeah,
think he's getting better and I have more confidence in him? Yes, but he's not Alisson. He's not, even Ederson. He's not Raya. I don't love Raya, but I don't think he's Raya.
yeah.
So I just don't see Chelsea winning the title with him how he is right now.
I think that's a fair assessment from a lot of level-headed Chelsea fans. We know with probably Sanchez between the sticks, we're not going to win the Premier League. But I think what I certainly do want us to do is definitely push forward. Like realistically, if you tell me, for example, that Chelsea have a better chance of winning the Champions League next season than the Premier League, I'll actually believe you. Because that's I think you'll also probably agree with that, wouldn't you?
I do. I do. Yeah.
Because I think it's a kind of cup competition which we are kind of always have had the knack for in general, and I think this squad in general has had now gotten around playing in these big cup competitions, especially winning two of them. So I don't. So that will not be surprising. What will be surprising is if we get like 80 plus points. So here's the stats, Jim. Chelsea have we have not the men's team have not hit 80 plus points like since 2017. Like that's that's like a long time for not hit 80 plus points. So
That's crazy.
that's like the number you need to reach in order to even compete for the title, right? So I think if you just hit 80 plus points for me, I think that's guaranteed probably top three. And probably it just means a huge step up also an improvement. And I think that'll and probably a good cup run. Maybe get a cup, maybe like an FA Cup, maybe a deep run in the Champions League. I think maybe pick up a cup competition or two uh, is I'll rate that as a good season. I'll rate that as a good season. We got one domestic cup, a good run in the Champions League, because even Champions League also depends on a lot of things. You know, we don't expect to win the Champions League every year anyway. We're not Madrid. We don't have that sort of fan expectations either, right? We know when we win, it's like it's gonna go wild if we ever do that, right? You know, that's why I had this was a wild night when I watched this final. It was crazy. It was amazing. I didn't expect us to be there. We were underdogs once again, but rest is history. Long live Tuchel. But in all honesty, if we really, really want to like push it back to the levels we were before 2017, I think that will be the biggest challenge we have to face. That is something I want to see how Maresca really challenge because doing it in cups is something else, right? But doing it week in, week out, churning out results like a machine, which the bald genius called Pep Guardiola has done like for the past decade in the Premier League, that is the real challenge. I expect City to be up there in the top three. I expect Liverpool definitely to be there. Liverpool are my favorites to win the Premier League. I'll
Yep.
be
I
honest.
agree.
It's there. Yeah, I think because they are have made insane. They've dropped a half a billy on on players. I mean, no one saw that even. So big up to and shout out uh, to Yash, my frequent collaborator on Brown People Talk Football. He's a Liverpool fan, and he was also like surprised, like he was kidding around. He was like, "What is happening? Liverpool is spending money on players after winning a trophy. I never expected this." And that was a frequent complaint, which people Liverpool fans had under club that the club didn't spend money whenever they won something big. But this time they've gone around and invested very smartly. I see them as favorites for sure.
Yeah, and
Arsenal,
that's actually just to comment on that. It's
yeah,
funny because obviously owned by John Henry and Fenway Sports Group, another
yeah,
American group. So I see a lot of it in America because one of my good friends is a Boston Red Sox fan,
yeah,
and obviously owned by the same group. So it's funny to see when the Red Sox aren't spending and then maybe Liverpool is, or the Red Sox are spending, Liverpool isn't then. And it's just this whole thing because you see it from every side. And I don't know how they manage, where to put their money and how that all works. But yeah, that was crazy to see them spend that much money. And, Florian Wirtz, we've talked about him a ton on our channel just because
yeah,
Danny's a Bayern fan and, we
yeah,
thought he was going to Bayern forever. So,
yeah,
that'll be very interesting to watch. And I did want to mention too what you said about Maresca. I agree with your point actually, and about the way he can manage in these Champions League Cup games. I think has the potential to be very interesting. And the step forward that I think he does need to make in the league is that consistency week in week out, as you mentioned, because it seems like at times he struggled last year to do that against the weaker opponents.
yeah,
Um, I think when you're an underdog against a PSG, you can come up with these crazy solutions that end up working out brilliantly. But when you need
yeah,
to do game plans against the Burnleys and Leeds and
Yeah.
Crystal Palaces, that's where it gets tough, and that's where you'll see if Enzo can be a really great manager.
I think you raise a great point. I believe that has been the Achilles heels even under we can all did all this way back to even the post Conte era of managers, right? Where managers have come in from Sari to Tuchel to everyone struggled to impose a consistency in the league always. We have struggled that for so many years because number one, Pep Guardiola has raised the levels of this league, and Klopp together have raised levels of winning this league to insane levels. It is like absolutely crazy. Like to get 97 points, 92 points and not win the league is absolutely insane. I mean, that's just crazy. It's saying like you get 90 points, but you won't win the league. I mean, that's just baffling to me to think of as a fan. So like, I have sympathies for Liverpool fans in that respect, for sure. What they went through when Klopp was there up against Pep, uh, but at the same time, we have not stepped up really like to the plate. I think the highest point tally in the last 8 years was like 74 points under Tuchel, I believe. It was the season after we won the Champions League with the whole Romelu Lukaku kind of fiasco kind of season where we got, and that was the highest point tally in so many years, by the way. 74 points was the highest point tally since our title winning season in 2017. That says a lot. That says like how we have struggled to actually replicate that. And I believe this will be the true test of Maresca this season to see how he manages game time of players with the squad he has, with the sort of mentality in the squad going on now. How are we able to replicate that? I believe we're set up well to do better because, I mean, you look at a striker option. A Liam Delap is so different to a Joao Pedro, right? I mean,
Yeah,
the lab is like absolute beast of kind of like this tank, right? He just wants to bulldoze through people. I mean, I remember him when he played for Ipswich against our defenders. He was terrorizing our defense.
dominated them.
He dominated. He was a one-man army. Like literally, three of our defenders were struggling to cope with Liam Delap. And I saw him do that to the PSG defense also in the final. He was like, he could have scored a goal. He should have probably got a goal had it not been for crazy saves by like world-class saves by
Yeah,
Donnarumma. We could have been sure that game should have been probably 4-0 or 5-0 that final. I mean, if it not for Donnarumma, literally. And but then on the flip side, you have João Pedro, who I completely underrated and who almost feels like this Roberto Firmino sort of regen kind of player, with his fluidity of his movement, his link up play, his tenacity to win the ball and not give up on it, constantly make runs and movements, and his intelligence in general, and his surprisingly great finishing, which I had no idea he had it in him, right? Because he didn't have that sort of scene at Brighton. But this has given the attacking options give us, and that's why I feel Simmons will be very key to that. Because last season, I believe, Jim, I think we definitely in the second half of the season, we struggled a lot attacking wise, didn't we?
it got very stale at times, to be honest. And I think exactly what you're saying with these new guys that are coming in, it's going to be really fresh. You got Gittins as well. Let's not forget the young phenom Esteval coming in, which
Oh
he's going to
man.
take some time for sure. I'm not putting any pressure on him. I'm going to
Yeah.
preach patience to everybody that listens. But it could be so exciting and electric for the squad. And the guys you mentioned, I'm so excited for, and
Oh,
Nico too. If he stays, I hope Nico stays. I always have a spot in my heart for him.
yeah.
But yeah, the attack I think could be so fresh, so exciting. I'm probably most excited for João Pedro just from what I saw at the Club World Cup, and I think what he
Oh, yeah,
provides,
man.
link up play, the runs he makes, and the
Oof.
striking he showed. If you had to say one player out of all the attacking options.
Mm,
And we can even throw Simmons in there, even though he's not part of the squad yet. But if you had to
mm,
pick one you're most excited to watch, who are you
mm.
picking?
Wow, that's a great question, actually. Well, I definitely have to say I mean, I agree with you actually. I honestly believe I'm very excited to see what João Pedro can do in the Premier League under Chelsea, because we saw him in cup competitions obviously so far. But his gameplay, I was totally taken aback. I guess I had not followed him so closely, but big up to other people who collab with me on the channel who had told me on Brown People Talk Football, who had told me like, no, John Pedro is pretty good actually, and a lot of other like also like fan bases like channels were like actually sang praises of João Pedro. I was like, okay, let's see what he can do. Oh, he can do things all right, and we saw that. I'm honestly very excited to see Joe Pedro in the Premier League. I mean, yeah, we have like Gittins also coming in, which is exciting. But I'm a little cautious of the Bundesliga tax,
Fair.
which is also there. Oh, I'm cautious with Gittins in that sense. I don't want to put too many expectations. I put too many expectations on the Vienners and other people in the past. I don't want to do that again. So I'm like cautious with Gittins and stuff. I'm more definitely was knowing that Pedro has had Premier League experience, and even for that matter, I would like to see how the lap and Pedro are rotated across the seasons, because I can definitely see phases where say maybe I think a Pedro probably starts over initially at the lap, but maybe throughout the season when we face different kind of defenses, say a stubborn deep block, you probably then get a Delap coming in to hold up the ball in, like bully the defenders, create some space, make those like these weird ass runs he makes to like confuse the defense completely. And I think that'd be really exciting to watch. I think are these two strikers, like how they really impact our play. I definitely look forward to these two players linking up.
Yeah, I mean, as I kind of noted earlier, I think the different lineups and combinations that you can put together will be so exciting to watch. I think you could play Pedro and Delap together potentially.
Yeah.
Um, so there's just so many things you can do, and Maresca has options, which is
Oh
so
yeah.
so exciting.
Yeah.
But yeah, overall, I just think this year is going to be so fun to watch. It's going to
I
be
think so.
hopefully some parity in the league. I think there's going to be teams that bounce back
Yeah.
and make the league a lot more interesting. And
Yeah.
yeah, overall, I just am very excited.
I think for what I think what I don't want too much. I don't want to create the expectation of, oh, if we get into the title race, we must win it. I mean, okay, I don't want to be I mean, once again, shots fired at Arsenal fans, I guess. I don't want to be like Arsenal fans and say, hey, we didn't want to win it. Okay, I guess if you didn't think of it, I would love to win it. Obviously, yeah, go for it. If you like in it, if you like in it, if you like, say, like maybe just 5 points off Liverpool, and I'm guessing they'll be at the top of the table, say, by the end of this year, I'll be like, okay, that's crazy. It's great. Might as well go for it. But I think all depends upon also. I think the key factor will be managing a very hectic schedule also with the squad, because now
Yep.
we have Champions League football. This no Mickey Mouse Conference League anymore, where we can just play like a B squad and get away with it, right? And this will be a new challenge completely. We're gonna be, I don't know, and plus the league, we're given the new league phase. How will we cope with that? Because that's a different different dynamics itself, right? You got to like, as we saw last season, like you play like a 9 games or so, or 10 games or so, and you got to win at least like a 6 or 7 of them. So you can't like go lax too easily and too
Yep.
quickly, because you never would know what kind of draw you will get and whatnot. So I think that'll be a very interesting. I'll look forward to the season. I'll look forward to Crystal Palace at home. I'll really looking forward to that game. I really wish we didn't have a preseason to go, but I mean I get it. We need a preseason also, but I hope the most of the core of the Club World Cup squad is kind of rested, and I hope Maresca uses more of the B squad coming in, like a Jamie Gittins, and get those players more
Yep.
minutes under the belt. Probably. I hope that we can. I think this will be a test, so we don't get overworked before even the season starts. In my
And to set expectations for that, it's two games in 3 days. It's
yeah,
Friday, Sunday against Leverkusen and AC Milan,
yeah,
both at the Bridge. I
yeah,
think you just got to say it's low pressure because
yeah,
you're going to be so far behind where those two clubs are. They've already
Yeah.
started their preseasons and have been playing live matches.
Yeah.
So think of it as the first couple last preseason when we played Celtic and just, they crushed us because they were like already in their season almost. And that's how it's
Yeah.
going to be. And yeah,
Very
you're
true.
going to see a lot of guys rotate probably just because it's, you can't play both those games if you're a player when it's back to back. So definitely low expectations there. But yeah, so excited. Real quick, I do want to just get your prediction on record. Two things. One is the finish in the Premier League for Chelsea. I said mine's going to be third. And then your prediction for which player scores the most goals on the season.
Wow. That's a crazy question. Okay. Uh, Tell you what, I'll raise the stakes a bit. I'll give you my top five for the Premier League itself. And this
Perfect.
is I'm going on a wild limb here. Okay. Uh, Liverpool to win the Premier League. They'll finish on top. I feel I think Chelsea will definitely be in the top three. So I would not pull Chelsea second. I'll probably put a City second, Chelsea on third, and an Arsenal in fourth. And the fifth is a toss up for me between depends if Isak is now staying. I'd say Newcastle for fifth again. Perhaps these are my top five tentatively. I see definitely Liverpool winning the Premier League for sure. I don't see any team being better than at this point. As for I think the goals, I feel the goals will be also fairly evenly divided between the Pedro, Joe Pedro, Palmer, and Delap a bit. But I definitely see once again Palmer topping the scoring charts. I don't see anyone else because he's that kid. That kid is a genius. I mean, I love him. I absolutely love him.
Yeah.
What
And in terms of goals, I agree. I think it's going to be spread out. That's the way Maresca wants it. I
Yeah,
don't know if I see a Delop or Pedro getting on top. I think penalties, if there's however many there is, Palmer's going to get those, which I
yeah,
think could just edge out those other two.
yeah.
I'll make my official prediction on that on a pod with Danny here in the coming weeks. But it's funny,
So
your top five, I pretty much agree with you, except my fifth, and I don't know if I have this fourth or fifth. I don't recall, but I actually have Tottenham sneaking in this coming season
no
ahead
way.
of
Yeah,
ahead of
that's a
Newcastle.
crazy shout. That's a crazy shout, actually. That's a crazy.
It
That's a pretty
is,
shout.
and I don't love doing it. I'm just kind of taking a risk, predicting it, and we'll see if it sticks. Maybe it'll be just to jinx them, and they'll be shit again. So
You know what? Let's hope we jinx it because my goodness, like these guys are suddenly winning trophies out of nowhere. So, not
right.
a great thing to see. As a Chelsea fan, at least.
I gotta say, wild that their admin team posted another trophy for the case when they won this, like, what was it, Hong Kong thing against whoever they
It's a,
that.
it's a
I was like, are you serious?
preseason trophy. Oh my goodness.
It's just embarrassing.
That's quite embarrassing. But I guess I think it was partly doing the make out of Arsenal fans, I guess. I think there's more of a sort of a London kind of shithousery kind of scenes which they were engaging in. But yeah, it's wild to see Spurs winning things in general.
Totally.
Yeah. But yeah,
Totally.
but
All right. And we are running out of time a little bit here. And so I want to just get you to, for our listeners at Always Bayern Chelsea, which you can find us YouTube, TikTok, Twitter, the whole 9 yards. Just look for Always Bayern Chelsea. But you as well, plug, your channel and wherever else everybody can find you.
So, first of all, Jim, thanks for it was great conversing. I hope we can keep this going. I really like being on here. I think we had a great conversation. I think it
Oh,
was very
totally.
smooth. It was very nice. It almost felt very, it felt so fluid. So it was great having this conversation. Yeah. So to find me, you can check out my YouTube channel. It's called Roohdar X. I'm also on Twitter as RudarX10094 is my handle. RudarX is my handle name in general. And you can also find me on Instagram. I'm also known as RudarX there. And yeah, I do a lot of live streams. I hope, Jim, we can do a live stream together also one day. Maybe you can hop onto my stream. That'll be nice. I'd love to introduce you to my own viewers. That'll be great. And I keep talking about football a lot and Chelsea in particular, and I mix it up with a lot of like my own sort of political analysis. And I let's keep doing this more. I was great being on here. So big up to you, brother.
Up to you as well, and up the Chelsea as well.
Up the Chels, up the Chels. Keep the blue flag flying high.